Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dollar Auction Show with Shimon and Alex. How are you, Shimon?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great now that Bitcoin has broken all-time highs when denominated in TLT, which is the bond index. So yeah, we're back, baby.
Oh, that good old TLT. Not only are we back today, we're recording on Friday, the February 9th, and we have really good news. And the good news are we are gonna switch up our episodes a little bit in the next couple episodes. One, we're gonna have probably early March. Uh, a person that love, I love talking to him. He's ex-CIA. He's been in the agency for about 16 years, and we're going to talk about how people in the intelligence agencies are actually hardcore Bitcoiners, which is fantastic. And two, for our listeners out there, I think we get feedback. We get feedback from you, so we appreciate it. And we're going to bring in some of the audience members to the show, and all of our audience can hear some of the other listeners that are there. And we'll bring in one executive from Microsoft who listens to us all the time. And if he's listening now, hello, Brian. We'll have him on the show in a couple of weeks here. We're very excited. So please, give us feedback, and we'll, maybe we'll bring more on. We'll experiment with this new format, and hopefully it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, we got feedback that basically people's stories and more personal stuff and less financial jargon is some of our listeners' favorite part of the show. So we're going to try to do more of it. But Alex, I just have to object to the fact that you refer to the CIA as the agency. I don't think you've earned that right.
It's true. I have not earned that right yet.
Have you done your
Um,
training at the farm? Because that's where CIA people get trained. So
uh, not only have I gotten my training at the farm, I also work out at the gym. Too
I
much, too soon.
No, but this is great actually because like you never know where the Bitcoiners are. So I was actually meeting a really important um, celebrity type person. I'm not gonna reveal the name just because like she didn't give me permission to share the private conversation. But we were talking about something else, some festival that we were sponsoring, and this like really important person, she knows all of the celebrities and everything, and she's more of a like a cultural art person. And suddenly she says, yeah, I'm pretty much sure that the NSA created Bitcoin. And I'm like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, because Hal Finney posted running Bitcoin, and then he visited the NSA, and then a couple of weeks later he died. So pretty much sure they were involved in. I'm like, wow, like the fact that she knows so much, and she's like, just like an arts person, it just made me so happy. You never know who are the Bitcoiners. So it doesn't surprise me that the CIA is into it because encryption is being something that intelligence agencies have used for thousands of years, literally. And so you train in that, you study that. So like then when you see Bitcoin, it clicks for you.
Wait, I want to make sure I understand. Are you telling me that intelligence agencies don't write in plain English? Like, hello, John Smith is a spy. Please don't read this if you're not allowed. And they actually kind of encrypt that message somehow?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Mind blown. Mind blown. I take your point, and I agree to disagree.
No, actually,
So,
I remember I took, this is a tidbit for our listeners. I took a course when I was doing my intelligence course in the Israeli intelligence in the IDF many, many years ago. I had to serve in the IDF because it's a draft. Everybody has to go. So we got a few lectures on encryption. It's actually fascinating. There were encryption methods from literally thousands of years ago, which was a stick that was like in a width that's not equal, and then you had this like tape, and only if you would wrap it around the stick, it would read the message. But if you would wrap it on any other stick of any other length, you wouldn't be able to read the thing. And so like the sender had the stick and the receiver had the same stick. That's pretty much like a public-private key combination like Bitcoin uses. It's just like super, super primitive and trivial to break if you have like, any modern technology. But back then, it clearly was effective. So
That's that's actually pretty cool. We should do it. We have so many topics that we start talking about. Like we should do this and that. We promised to do war tech um, this episode.
mhm.
Let's push it until we have a friend from the CIA, the agency, because I think we can talk a lot about encryption and interesting things there. So we're gonna break our promise, but I think for a good cause. And also, I think we should talk about. I know we went off on a different path before people liked it, so and we should do this. But let's talk about the markets really quickly because Friday, February 9th, boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, are we pumping? And what's interesting on the Bitcoin front, and again, not to be all Bitcoin all the time, but on the Bitcoin front, what's interesting is yesterday on February 8th, we had the second biggest day of inflows. And what I read today, let's just talk about finance all up, but there are rarely, if ever, a new ETF launched, and in Bitcoin's case, there are nine, main two being BlackRock and Fidelity, where for the first 11 days, you have consistent inflows for all 11 days of, I think it was only two negative days, and the other 9 days were positive. That's literally never happened before. And it's an interesting phenomenon, not only of people in demand for Bitcoin is in demand, but also from a regulatory perspective. And this is what the angle I'd love to talk to you about, Shimon, is the regulation in the US has been so anti crypto. But in general, when the regulation is anti a certain industry, it creates a pent up spring in demand. It's almost like because the SEC has been so anti crypto, they've created a frenzy that they wanted to avoid. And this is a perfect case of how regulation distorts markets, actually. Good regulation keeps guardrails, but over regulating completely distorts markets and creates a lot of inefficiencies. And instead of protecting investors, they're actually hurting investors. So I don't know if you have any thoughts there, but I wanted to use Bitcoin as a spring to talk about regulation all up and the friction that it creates in a lot of markets.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's completely ridiculous. I mean, I understand why the government didn't want to approve this, and thank God for our judicial system. This is why I love this country so much. I think it's the country that actually has the separation of powers. Like for example, in Israel, you have like a Supreme Court and a parliament and an executive, but like the executive pretty much controls the parliament because it's only one parliament and you need the parliament to vote for the government, and so they pretty much control everything, and they also appoint the judges, but like in a way that's not like here, where it's like very staggered. So basically there's no separation of powers, and here it's awesome. The administration wants to not approve something, and the courts are strong enough to say, wait a second, you approved futures ETFs, but you're not approving spot. That's whatever, arbitrary or capricious. I don't remember the thing.
Arbitrary and capricious.
And capricious. No, but the point, this is great. And so then they approved it. And yeah, imagine if, well, you could actually make the case that the fact that the ETF wasn't approved was really good for retail. Because
Why?
I mean, I'm not making the case. I read it on Twitter and I could entertain it, because imagine in 2015 when the Winklevoss applied for an ETF. If they had approved it, the price would run up really quickly, and it would be mainly Wall Street and mainly financial institutions to benefit from the price appreciation, because they come in as soon as the ETF is approved. Versus now, we at least had several years of like normal people being able to buy a whole Bitcoin for like $10,000. How cool is that? And so now when the price reaches $200,000, you already have the normal people that weren't front run by the financial institutions. That's the case for why it helped. Of course, for you and I mean, if the ETF was approved like one day after we bought our first Bitcoins, it would have been much better. But I don't think you can optimize for that.
No, I don't think we can optimize for that. And who knows, and it's very hard to time markets. It's very hard to time any of this, right? Any of this. it's an interesting case. I don't know if I necessarily buy it, but I do buy the fact that arbitrary and capricious. What's happening with the SEC now is you're taking a regulator that's supposed to be an impartial regulator to even the markets, and for some reason they're being activists and picking and choosing industries. And again, this is within Bitcoin, but even outside of Bitcoin, it's actually quite critical and important. So Peter Schiff is famous in our space because he talks shit about Bitcoin. He's a very big gold bug. Um, but the SEC recently expanded the definition of a broker dealer, okay, by themselves, so that they can regulate broker dealers. And even Peter Schiff in different industries is like, whoa, you're a regulator single-handedly without the act of Congress. So expanding a definition and then saying, well, now you got to regulate it. It's like I don't know
There's
if
a term for
you
that. I think there's a term for that called something like legislation by regulation or something. So instead
yeah
of passing legislation, you just like use the fact that you own the regulators while you're in power to like, create facts.
yeah
Then you create
no it's
precedent, and then it kind of half binds the regulator that comes after you.
it's it's terrible, and it in no market the regulators are there to ensure fair play in markets. In no markets should a regulator be picking and choosing winners and losers. That is literally not a free market, and that's not helpful to anyone. It's not helpful to any players, and actually what it's helpful to is to the established players who are big enough to have an army of lawyers and lobbyists. It's definitional regulatory capture. You know, there's a certain political position that the government has, and it's been influenced by lawyers and lobbyists. And that's it. And they put pressure on the regulator to uphold that position. So they're upholding our position. And that's unfortunate. That is very anti-American. Whether you're in Bitcoin, whether you're in energy, it creates the wrong incentives in markets. And frankly, what it does, incidentally or ironically, I should say, is push innovation offshore. So instead of capturing tax revenue, regulating folks, if people go offshore, okay, people talk about our industry, the Bitcoin industry, oh, there are all these shady things. Okay, suppose there are shady things. If you have poor regulation in the US, you're pushing these things offshore, they're going to keep on happening just now outside of the jurisdiction. Instead of saying, hey, we'll have good kind of laws and good regulation, but now it's going to happen within the US, and you stop the bad actors from participating. Anyway.
No, I completely agree, and I couldn't recommend one of the most popular talks of the All In Summit of this was posted 4 months ago. It's Bill Gurley's presentation called 2,851 Miles. And that's exactly what he talks about. How regulation, when done correctly, it's great. But when they pick winners and losers, it's just like disastrous. So he gives, for example, crazy. I'll just do it in justice. I really want people to, look at that
Yeah.
talk. But basically, he gives an example of how in Europe, where there's no regulation on COVID tests or something, you can buy a COVID test for like a third of the price that it costs here in the US. And
Wow.
like, and it's only because they basically said, look, like anyone can sell COVID tests or whatever. And here you had this law that basically was meant to make COVID tests affordable to everybody. And so I don't remember exactly the details, but something like, because the government wanted to ship free tests to people, they negotiated really aggressively the price. And the price that they negotiated was like 3 times what you can just buy it in Europe. So then Bill Gurley asks, why doesn't the government just go to grocery stores in Europe, buy a bunch of COVID tests, and sell them here? Like, it's just insane. And this is like vulnerable people, sick people, it's poor people that need these tests. We're not talking about a luxury item. We're talking about something that can save your life. And even then, they haven't figured out a way. And there's so much. The broadband in this country is terrible for the price.
Yeah.
The healthcare is like super expensive for what you get. Like, there's all these like charts that show longevity versus GDP per capita investment in healthcare, and just like the US, the outlier. Everybody lines up on a line, which is like the more you spend, the better longevity you have. and then, the US spends like way, way, way more than everybody else and gets kind of the same result. So basically, it's not like the US has worse healthcare than other people. It's just like much, much more expensive. And so I completely agree. And regulation is terrible. And to prove that point, I prepared a tweet from our favorite senator.
Ooh.
Who is our favorite senator?
Senator Lummis.
No, so our second favorite
What?
senator is Elizabeth Warren.
Oh yes, our very favorite senator. The other favorite senator. We love Elizabeth Warren.
So, Alex, here's the structure of my rant. I will read the text of the tweet to you.
Yeah.
Then I want you to propose a mechanism by which this text could be correct, because I think it's completely wrong. And then we will listen to Elizabeth Warren's explanation of why the text is correct. So Elizabeth Warren said, the Fed hiked interest rates to the highest level in 20 years. So far, so good. Now, rents and mortgages are going up, and housing is out of reach for many families. Enough is enough. It's time for the Fed to cut interest rates. Now, Alex, let me ask you, when you cut interest rates, do real estate prices tend to go up or down?
Oh, I know. Well, actually, but caveats. I do have a good little bit of a caveat. But yes, when you cut interest rates, prices typically move up. Why does that happen?
Why is that?
Well, when interest rates are lower, you have less incentive to save. When you have less incentive to save, you want to put your money into assets. Well, either spend or put money into assets where you have a higher ROI or higher return. So when you spend or put money elsewhere outside of a bank, you increase the velocity of money. More money is chasing the same fixed amount of goods, and so prices improve. Also, specifically for real estate, when you cut interest rates, mortgage rates fall. When mortgage rates fall, you pay less interest on your mortgage, and so the house becomes cheaper per month or more affordable to you. When the house becomes cheaper per month and more affordable to you, you want to go out and get that house.
Yeah, or
How
even
did I do?
I completely agree. And to make it very, very concrete, let's say my family has $3,000 per month to spend on a mortgage, right?
Mhm.
At 5% interest rate, right? That payment can get me one type of house. At 3% interest rate,
I
right?
get you a higher house.
Same monthly payment gets me a much more expensive house, which means
Yep.
I can bid for those more expensive houses, which means it will push the prices up. And
Yeah.
it's like 100%. I like your explanation because it was more generic. Yeah, in general, when you lower interest rates, prices of things go up, right? And when you increase interest rates, prices of things go down. That's why the Fed raised interest rates to fight inflation. Literally, the reason the Federal Reserve said they're
Yeah.
raising interest rates is to fight inflation, which means to bring prices down. So if anything, Elizabeth Warren had to say, oh, houses aren't affordable, rents aren't affordable, let's keep raising interest rates. But no, she wants to reduce the interest rates. Now, let's hear her explanation, which
Let's do it.
this is my first time hearing this explanation. Let's see our dear Elizabeth.
Too damn high. Rent is too damn high. Why? In part because of high interest rates. Let me explain. High interest rates mean high mortgage rates for landlords. And when landlords pay more,
For landlords.
pay more. High interest rates also mean it's harder for somebody to buy a home. When fewer people buy homes, there are more renters, and that drives up the price of renting even more. And high interest rates mean one more thing. Construction gets more expensive, and that means fewer homes and fewer apartments get built. Today, we're seeing some of the highest interest rates in more than 20 years, and they're hurting people. Of course, it's not just interest rates. We need to build more housing, period. But high interest rates are part of the problem in front of us right now. That's why I'm pushing the Fed to lower interest rates. Enough is enough. Rent is
Oh boy.
So first of all, thank you, Elizabeth Warren. I would love for the Fed to drop interest rates because that would be fantastic for our Bitcoin portfolio. So go, girl, you go get him. But no, the fallacy there is that everything that she said is correct. Only there is another factor that goes
Yes.
in the opposite direction that's much stronger. You know, it's like saying, oh, it's great. I'm sick, so that's why I get to rest in bed all day. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's like, no, because I'm also in pain.
Yes.
Oh, it's like, oh, do you want to rest, Alex? Here are some flu viruses that you can inhale. That
Yes.
will solve your problem. It will put you in bed for 2 entire days. And guess what? You can also get, paid time off work. Do you want my flu virus spores to inhale?
Yes, please. You rest in bed and time off work. Amazing. Oh shit, I'm down with 105 fever and I can't get out of bed and it has complications in my heart. Didn't think about that. No, this is why she's a very dangerous politician. She didn't lie.
Yeah,
She
they never
presented
lie.
the
They never
yeah.
lie with facts. Everything she said is true. It's true that higher interest rates increase the cost of materials for building a home. Completely true.
Yeah, and it's also true. It drives up rents.
It's also true that the land is 80% of the value of the home and the materials are 20%. And guess what higher interest rates do to the value of the land? No, I mean, higher makes it
I
go.
sorry, yeah, lower. Just, of course, yeah, increase. No, and then you have these sound bites. Like she goes out and she's fighting for the working people, and then things. It's the same sound bites as you know. We caused inflation. We printed money. It's like these evil businesses are just profit gorging the poor consumer. Stop Walmart and all these other stores from increasing prices because the poor consumer is suffering. It's like, yes, but you caused inflation. You printed money. You got these, like, it costs more for stores to buy the raw goods. You know, this populism is just it. It's unfortunate because these sound bites work. They work, and people hear this and react to it. It's like, oh yeah, great, Elizabeth Warren. It makes sense, makes logical sense. Except if you understand the essence of the problem, there's this whole other side, like with your example of the flu virus. That yeah, it's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate. Can I bring something up for you?
Please.
Speaking of politics, did you hear the special counsel? This is February 8th, Thursday, came
No.
out. There was basically an investigation of Biden taking the classified documents, into his house, and the special counsel came up with a report. Do you know anything about this?
I heard that this is not a quote, but something like his cognitive capabilities
Yeah.
don't allow him to stand trial or something.
Well, no, it's not fully, but basically, a special counsel came out. It was a Republican special counsel, so just to put all the facts out there, but appointed by Merrick Garland, which is a Biden appointee, as the Attorney General of the U.S. And the special counsel basically said that, look, Biden, he said a couple of things. One is very different than Trump, because Trump basically, when they asked Trump about his documents that he took to Mar-a-Lago, Trump tried to hide them or destroy them or obfuscate or obstruct other people from giving them to the investigators. Biden didn't. But they're like, there's no way that we win in court against Biden because he's going to come off to the jury as a lovable old, basically lovable senior citizen that there's definitely reasonable doubt because his cognitive level is so low that he doesn't remember dates or whatever. So they're like, of course, there's reasonable doubt that he did this on purpose. Because of his basically retracted, I should say, cognitive abilities, you cannot prove without a reasonable doubt that he did this willingly. There's no way we can win in court. But that brings up the question of how is the U.S. president that doesn't remember things? And look, God bless Biden, whatever part of the aisle you're on, I think we have to recognize that, look, he served for 50 years, essentially,
I don't blame
in
Biden.
government.
I blame the people that make him run
Yeah.
for 5 more years.
Yeah, I agree. But now today came out, Charles Gasparillo is on Fox News. He's a kind of Wall Street analyst. That with the rumors on Wall Street, a lot of lobbyists know the big money behind the Democratic Party, is that. Oh wait, sorry. I'm going to go back for listeners. So this thing came out, and Biden had this press conference when he basically got super angry. He's like, "How dare you doubt my cognitive abilities?" And the special counsel brought up the fact that Biden forgot the year when his son died, and it was a big tragedy. His son, I believe, overdosed. But anyway, and so Biden came out and said it was a low blow, and he was doing these interviews during October 8th and 9th, which is the day after Hamas attacked Israel. He's like, I was preoccupied. So there were a couple of instances where Biden couldn't remember the exact year he stopped being vice president. And look, can that happen where a person is preoccupied with a major geopolitical issue and you're like, 2013, I do this all the time. Like, oh, what year was this and that? For sure, it can happen. But there are also speeches where we see how Biden is speaking, and he's clearly lost a step. Let's just say, put it that way. But anyway, last thing before I turn over to you, there are all these rumors on Wall Street that the Democratic Party is now seriously questioning whether he can win, and they're going to pull him. And by the way, actually, sorry, this is the last thing. In all the polls, he's crushed by Biden. Trump, he's crushed by Trump. A generic Democrat against Trump, generic Democrats win.
Yeah, of course. That's what I don't understand. Like, people who really kind of care about, if you're a Democrat and you think that Trump will destroy the democracy, why are you okay with Biden being the nominee? Like, it's more, Alex, than forgetting your when you were vice president. I want to share another thing that's close to my heart. So I put this tweet out that basically says, apparently the president of Mexico, Obrador, has a nickname, and he also has a key role in the Gaza conflict. Check this out.
As you know, initially, President of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. He talked to Bibi to open the gate on the Israeli side. As you know,
look, he has a lot of these gaps where he mistakes
no, but
things.
This is not a gaffe. This is, if he says that he spoke to the president, he clearly meant the president of Egypt, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Versus, there's many jokes about Obrador being Sisi because he says yes to everything. See, but no, it's just crazy. Like, I could see what's happening in his mind. It's like border, fence, Mexico, right? Like, he has all these like talks every day with his staff about the border, fence. It's all about Mexico. So I could see, but come on, like, you're trying to deter Iran from attacking your new carriers. It's just like, I don't understand. Why do they put, like, just, again, pick someone that has exactly the same policies.
Yeah.
It's just younger. What's the problem? I completely
agree. I don't understand how, I've always said, this is why I was always against Trump, that the president of the United States has to be the smartest, the best, the most experienced. I want them to be so much better than me, looking at them thinking, wow, like, this person is almost a genius. They understand geopolitics well, and they're articulate. Because the president's ultimate tool is the bully pulpit. It's how they speak. It's how they motivate people to move and act. And so that's kind of a minimally required, it's like an MVP for a president. The min bar is to be super sharp on top of it. It's an extremely demanding job. It's an extremely demanding job. You can see all the presidents, before, when they become president and after office, they look like, they're zombies. So Obama, man, he's like this young guy before he went to office, and now he's like this old grandpa because it weighs on you. You have literally the weight of the world, and now you have Israel, Egypt, you have China, Taiwan, you have Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Egypt, Israel, Palestine. You have so many things that are riding on you. You have to be at peak performance. And Biden is just very clearly not at peak performance. I think the issue is asking a sitting president not to run again. It's kind of never been done, and it's seen as whatever, an embarrassment. But like, Joe, you served your country. Regardless of whether people or listeners agree with his politics or not, I think it's fair to say, like, I just want to put partisanship aside. I'm so tired of the partisanship. It's like, here's a man that served this country. that's been in the Senate for 50 years. You can believe he did stuff with Burisma and Ukraine. You can not believe. It doesn't even matter. I think he truly, throughout his time, more often than not, meant well and loves this country than not. Enjoy your retirement. You know, pass the torch on. Same thing for McConnell, and same thing for Trump. Trump also keeps on mistaking, world leaders and so on. Plus, Trump is also maniacal and egotistical. All of these guys. There was a chart about average age of Congress. It's like, let our generation lead. We are in our prime. The millennials and Gen Xers are in our prime. We are at the top of our game. We understand the modern world much better than they do. We understand technology. We understand implications. Vivek, RFK is a little older, but listen to Vivek speak. Extremely eloquent. Now, you can disagree with all his policies. That's not the point. The point is he is logical and he presents his position well. And I think that is a requirement of the President of the United States. They have to be able to communicate their positions, their stance, their drive of the country. And Biden just can't. Neither can Trump. But Biden cognitively is, I think, far behind Trump. And I hope both don't run. Like, it's an embarrassment for the country that we have Biden and Trump.
Well, the one good thing going for us is that Putin is not in a much better shape. I watched the interview with him. Did you watch the interview with him?
No.
It was so hilarious. First of all, I wanted to. I sent you a text, but then I figured out that I messed up the video, so maybe you didn't get the joke. But there's a part there where he says, "Me and the president of China agreed to get to a goal of $200 billion of trade per year, and we exceeded that goal." And we got to $240 billion of trade according to our team, and $230 billion of trade according to the Chinese team. And my question is, it's the same number. How can the two teams get? It's literally two people trading with each other. So, and this reminded me of some of my days in my previous job where there was the Chinese data team, and God bless them, but I could totally see, the conversation being like, hey, Calvin Zhao, our Russian counterparts say that it's 240 billion. How much do you have? And then Calvin says, I have 230 billion. Here's my Excel sheet. And his boss is like, okay, thank you. And that's it. And they don't do anything with, like, why don't you just look at the numbers? See where the discrepancy is. Get to the same page. He's about to present the numbers to the whole world. Like, it's just like, it's so funny to me that like two countries can't agree about the size of their mutual trade. So that was one funny thing. Then the other funny thing
Alvin Zhao is the best part of the whole thing.
Then the other funny thing was the fact that Tucker Carlson is like, hey, Putin, why did you invade Ukraine? And he's like, well, let me tell you, let me take 30 seconds and tell you about the history of our region. And then he rambles for 30 minutes about this brother in 859 ousted his two other brothers that were trying to vie for the throne. And then one of the two ousted brothers founded one city, and then Kiev and Novgorod were like two, and he starts going so deep. It's like, and then this clan married with this clan, and the joke in Bitcoin is, sometimes people say, hey, why did the Federal Reserve raise interest rates? And it's like, well, the Yap people used to store value in circular stones. And, it's kind of the same where people just ramble about history instead of answering.
It's amazing. Oh my
So
God.
he definitely gave vibes that are very unhinged and not coherent.
Well,
and
Putin is also kind of losing it. Yeah,
he's really losing it. He was like, Tucker, you applied to the CIA twice and they rejected you twice. Like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, the guy's a journalist.
Sure.
Yeah. And then China, they're very sharp, but they have problems with their data teams and also terrible demographics. So I think we'll be okay as an empire. That's my bottom line.
Perfect. I think we are going to be okay with that. Actually, India is the one that's coming up, and I think is going to challenge is going to challenge the U.S. You and I both, we've been saying this a lot. We're fairly bearish on China. It's just not the right culture. Culture eats everything. After a while, culture just eats everything. And the Chinese culture is very top down. If the boss says this, I'm going to drop what I was doing just so I can please the boss. And there's no incentive for going an inch outside of your whatever the right word is. So not permit, purview. I don't know. It's Friday. It's late, but an inch outside of what you're supposed to do. How about that? And in
Purview?
India, it's a purview. And yeah, thank you. And not permit. Definitely not permit. If you're going an inch outside your permit, get punished in every country. um, uh, in India, it's very entrepreneurial, and then it's kind of the you could say the most democratic state in the world. They have so many different factions, they're all like fighting each other. So it's a little bit bureaucratic that way. I have a great story about India, by the way, which I would like to say. But this is where entrepreneurship is very grassroots. My story about India is when I went in 2012. I'm like Biden, I'm forgetting the dates. I remember visiting a temple, and there was security before you walk in, and there's 3 guards. Okay, did I tell you about this? I'll tell. Or listen, there's 3 guards, and it's like one is standing, and then next to him is the guy that's sitting. Okay, and then next to him is the guy that's standing. And you're like, Shimon, do you have any idea why there are 3 guards and one standing, sitting, standing?
Maybe they take turns on who sits, so you need 2 standing guards, and then they rotate.
It's a great job, a great guess, great hypothesis. Thank you, but you're wrong. No, you first walk over to the first standing guy, okay, and he pats you down from the waist up. You walk over to the sitting guy because he's sitting. He pats you down from the waist down, and then you walk over to the third guy. To him, you give you a ticket, and he checks it. So it's like perfect job creation, okay? Of like sitting, standing, sitting, standing. It's just like, what is happening here? Like, you get one person, 2, let's say, one pets it down, one checks his stuff, and no, but
So
job creation is
that's
finance.
the hidden unemployment. I mean, that was a big thing in I remember in the day. I mean, look, India was kind of like a semi-socialist country, and so Israel had the same stuff, like, which is like you have these structures where the young guys do all the work, and then the older you get, the less work you get, and so then at some point there's like one guy working and 4 people standing next to him, like supervising him or whatever. So I'm very familiar with that. By the way, give me a second. I'm gonna cut here. I need to close the door.
Okay, we should wrap up, by the way. Are you editing this one? Or am I?
Yes, I'll edit this one. Okay, 37, 40.
Yeah, something like that.
37, 40.
When you come back, let's start wrapping up. I want to try to get through all this shit so I can go and meet you, but I'm just
okay.
I'm getting pinged like on left and right.
By the way, you know that they can tell in the podcast when you're looking like and doing other work and stuff.
I actually wasn't. Well, there's a couple of things, dude. I'm just getting. It's just like an onslaught of fire hose.
I'm just saying it's gonna.
But I didn't miss a beat. I don't think I've ever.
You didn't. Okay, and we're back. Yeah. So, but then look, you can interpret this in another way, which is like there's a lot of potential for improving the efficiency. That's the other way of looking at it. That's why India, I'm actually bullish on India, not necessarily in the sense that, versus the US, but I really think that China has a big, big problem because of demographics. Because it's not only that they had a one-child policy, but also it changed the whole culture. So it's not just a policy that you can just like reverse by giving the right tax incentives. It changed the whole culture. And it's just like, who's going to take care of the people who are retiring? I mean, if you think about this, they had their like big revolutions in the 60s and 70s, right? Then they had the 80s, 90s, and 2000s to like really, really grow, like to catch up. And then, they had another, but then the people started to retire. Like some of the people that like worked in the purely capitalist or more capitalist system are starting to retire now. Where are they going to get the stuff from? And also I heard another thing, which is the US is in an amazing position because of its energy situation and fertile land. Like there's very few countries that have both energy and fertile land. For example, Russia has energy, but Ukraine has the fertile land. And Bulgaria has like fertile land, but they have absolutely no energy. So the fact that you're both independent on the food and the energy pretty much lets you do whatever you want. And that's why I'm so first of all bullish on the US, and second of all, the spirit here. And we should really, I'm excited about our next episode where we're going to talk about defense startups, because like this whole idea of like we can just create something from scratch that's much better than the status quo. You need a specific culture for that. And if you think about it, all the people that came to the US from Europe were the people that were looking, they were hungry for growth, they were hungry for something better, they didn't want to be oppressed. And also like the fact that you have free speech and like absolute free speech, all of that stuff, it's like really, really, really good. So I'm very bullish on the US. And that actually makes me very sad about Israel, because Israel has like all of the brains and the technology and all of that. But unfortunately, the people who are authoritarian there are becoming more and more. And so it's, by the way, I wanted to give a recap of the situation in Gaza, because some people that are our listeners really want to get my take on it. So basically, the operation is going pretty well, in the sense that there has been very few Palestinians killed in the last couple of weeks that are not terrorists. So they're doing very surgical operations against terrorists. More and more terrorists are surrendering, which is like a really good sign, because before they would just fight to the death. And now you have people, they published an interrogation of a guy who was like, yeah, we were like behind the blast door, like in the tunnels they have these blast doors that they can hide behind, and there's like a bomb on the other side of the door, so when the soldier comes, the bomb explodes and the people on the other side are safe. So they were like, we opened the blast door to show them that we're not gonna detonate the thing. We put all of our weapons on the other side, and we're just waiting to surrender to the like soldiers as they came, because we didn't want to die. So that's like really good. The two big problems that remain is that the city that's next to Egypt, called Rafah, that's where all the terrorists are, that's where the hostages are, and that's where like the leadership is. And the problem is you can't really conquer that city without hurting a lot of civilians, because you have like millions of people living there in a tiny area that they got squeezed, because Israel basically evacuated them from all the north of the area. And then the other problem is they put a lot of like IEDs on the border with Egypt. And so what happens is, to detonate these IEDs, you will create holes in the fence. And Egypt basically is really afraid of that, because once you have holes, everybody can start running into Egypt.
Yeah.
So those are the two big problems that once they solve both of these, hopefully the war can be over really quickly in Gaza. So there are two ideas.
They're big problems though. Yeah,
No,
what are the ideas?
they're solvable. So like the idea is, first of all, you have to like tell all the population to move to the north, so you can fight the terrorists in the south.
Yeah.
And then the border, they could build another wall that's like around. So it's like, if this is the border with Egypt, you just build another border that's like closer to Israel. And then you can enter and just like fight the terrorists, but like you basically don't conquer that territory, because they booby trapped it completely. It's like it's impossible to just like go there and do stuff. But like, I'm very happy that less Palestinians are dying. I'm very happy that it's close to an end, because like the suffering there is terrible. People don't have food. People, they just get the bare minimum. So I really, really hope that within a couple of episodes we'll be able to say, okay, that's it. The army stopped operating in Gaza, and hopefully life can start getting back to normal for all these people. So that's
hopefully. Well, look, thank you for that. We should get your update next time. On this hopeful note, we should wrap. Thank you guys for listening. Like, subscribe, send us feedback. We'll maybe bring another fan or audience member on the episode. Looking forward to doing one with Brian. Hello, Brian. And we'll see you in a week, Shimon.
Yeah, great as always. Have a great weekend, everybody.